No. This girl just threw me, dude. I just came up with the babysitter and came back to my clothes and I took them off. It was cold and not moving.
Welcome back. I'm Cassie, and this is Wicked World. The story I have for you today is about a little boy who was killed by a woman who wasn't even supposed to be around children at the time. This was due to her history of children in her care obtaining suspicious injuries. This is the story of Benson Xiong. Benson Xiong was born on July 31st, 2018. To his mother, Heather Gardner, and his father, Jamie Xiong. He also had an older brother named Jathan. Benson was a very happy baby who loved being held. Baby Benson smiled all the time, especially when you tickled under his chin. Heather Gardner, who was a working mother of two, needed childcare for Benson and his older brother after their grandmother who previously watched them had moved to California. So she had searched for a good babysitter for her boys. And one of her coworkers would suggest that she go to a woman named Marissa Teetsort. Marissa was 28 years old, and she came from the same hometown as Heather. So after speaking with Marissa, Heather decided that she seemed trustworthy, and she hired her to take care of her boys. But only weeks after Marissa had begun babysitting Benson and his older brother while Heather was at work, the mother noticed that Benson had some scratches inside his mouth, so she brought him to the emergency room. She told the doctors there that she didn't know if he was being abused by the babysitter. However, the doctors had told her that the scratches looked like nothing and she shouldn't worry. So, Heather would end up letting Marissa babysit Benson and his brother again. On the afternoon of October 18, 2018, Heather dropped off her two boys at Marissa's apartment, which was located on North 6th Street in Wausau, Wisconsin. Then, only about 2 hours after Heather had dropped off her children with Marissa, she received a text message from the babysitter, letting her know that there was a story on a local media website saying that Marissa had been charged with child abuse. Marissa told Heather that she was not supposed to be in contact with any children, and certainly not supposed to be watching her two boys. So she asked Heather to not tell anybody that she was babysitting for her. As soon as Heather read this horrifying text, which was unfortunately a few hours after Marissa had sent it since Heather was at work, she went over to pick up her boys right away. Heather would also bring her sister along with her when she went to pick up the boys from Marissa's house. Now, when Heather and her sister arrived at Marissa's home to pick up Benson and his brother, they were already ready to go. Benson was in his car seat asleep as it was just after 9 p.m., and he had his snowsuit on with a hat that was pulled down just over his eyes. Marissa, who was in a hurry for some reason, quickly said goodbye to Heather and the boys and pushed them out the door, saying, "See you tomorrow." Heather didn't understand why Marissa was acting so odd, but shortly after, she would find out exactly why. After picking up her children from Marissa, Heather needed to get some laundry done, so she, along with her two children and sister, went to the Northway Coin Laundry on West 3rd Street. Only minutes after arriving at the laundromat, however, Heather discovered that Benson was not breathing. He was also cold to the touch, and he had stiff limbs. Heather immediately started to do CPR on her baby to try to revive him, while her sister called 911.
Harrison County 911. Please, I'm at the laundromat on the corner of 3rd and Union. Please. At the corner of the laundromat on the corner of... Stop. 923, 923, 3rd Ave or something, Merrill Ave or something. I'm not sure.
Okay, 3rd Ave and Merrill Ave are very different places. Which one are you at? 923?
Heather, it's a laundromat. I don't know the name of it, but I have another child in my arms. My sister's baby is dead. We just picked him up on the babysitters.
CPR? There's CPR on that baby.
We don't know how.
Is he? Do you have him on his back?
Yep, he's on his back.
Okay, I need you to tip his head back.
He's freezing cold. Tip his head back, Heather. Tip his head back.
I need you to blow into his mouth.
Nose. Into his nose.
Laundromat.
We're at the laundromat. I don't know what to do. I can't call you on the run. Yes, we're here. Yes, but the baby is still not breathing. You gotta have his head to back. Okay, what am I doing this? Do we do chest compression?
Yes, I need need you to start. I need you to listen to me.
Yep.
Did you blow into his mouth 2 times?
Okay, I gotta go walk up to here. Yes, I am.
Blow into his mouth 2 times. Plug his nose.
He's freezing cold already.
Okay, ma'am, I need you to take your hand and put it in the middle of his chest.
Okay.
Okay, and you're going to push on his chest.
Okay.
And count with me. Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
When officers from the Wausau Police Department arrived on the scene, Heather was still trying to give her baby boy CPR, and they noted that Benson had an ashen skin tone, his jaw was clenched, and his lips were blue. There was no chance of reviving him.
Are the police in there?
Yes.
Okay.
I just came up with the baby and I came back to my clothes and I took them off. It was cold and not moving. I can't do this. I gotta get Jason.
An autopsy was performed on Benson's body, and it was determined that he had died from blunt force trauma. He had suffered 3 separate blunt force trauma injuries to his head, and his tailbone had actually been broken as well. In fact, the bottom piece of his tailbone had broken off and been displaced. That's how hard of an impact it had been. After the horrible discovery that baby Benson had died, police went to find Marissa to speak with her to see what she knew. So police made their way over to Marissa's apartment where she lived with her boyfriend Adam and their young son. But when they got there, no one was home. However, authorities were able to work with Marissa's cell phone carrier so that they could track her down. And they tracked her cell phone to a local hotel called the Plaza. Officers knocked on the motel room door and Marissa's boyfriend Adam would answer. Marissa was still sound asleep and had to be woken up by officers. Once they finally got her out of bed, they started to question her about what had happened to Benson. She acknowledged that she had babysitted Benson and his older brother, but said she had no idea that anything had happened to him. The officer, however, knew this was a lie, because Benson's aunt who had been there that day had texted Marissa from Heather's phone. The message had said, "You killed my sister's baby." But when Marissa spoke with police, she tried to play dumb and say that she had never seen the text message come over because her phone was shut off. But police knew this was not true, because in order to track her to the hotel as they had, her phone would have had to have been turned on. Marissa also told police that the reason she was at the hotel with her boyfriend was because they just needed to get away and they wanted to go swimming. In the police body cam footage while officers are interviewing Marissa outside the hotel room door, she is even seen smiling and laughing.
Morning, Adam.
Morning.
Is Marissa here?
What are you guys doing here?
Please, Adam, just cooperate with us, okay? We'll explain everything in a second.
Well, you already charged her. What the
Adam, stay here.
No. You guys are harassing the hell out of us. And she already got charged. We'll be at court. Why you gotta come here?
Well, because we need to talk to her about something new.
Something new?
Yep. Marissa, I need you to wake up. Why are you guys here?
Because we wanted to get away. We got it.
From what?
Everything. Isn't it against the law to come stay at a hotel room for the night?
Can you get up so I can talk to you?
No.
This is a very important conversation we're about to have, okay? Tell me about taking care of him today.
Oh, I was just watching him, and UT was fine.
Did you feed him, or?
I fed him once, and then he slept, and, well, we went outside when they first got there a little bit, so, it was
You
nice
and
out.
the kids?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was he dressed in what?
He was dressed in a snowsuit and a blanket.
Okay. And then you were home alone, and then what time did Adam get home?
He got home at, like, almost, I don't know, maybe 6:30 or something like that.
Where was he at?
He was hunting.
Okay. And then what did you guys do after that, after Adam got home?
We went to eat a little bit after he got home.
Where'd you go?
McDonald's.
What happened? And did you come straight home after McDonald's?
Mm-hmm.
The only place you went outside of the house was McDonald's? Okay. And then came straight home, and anything significant happen?
No. We came home after McDonald's. We put a movie in, then, like, I don't know how long it was after, but she called and she's like, I'm putting my clothes in the dryer and then I'll be there. And then, like, 15 minutes she came there, so.
Okay. And did you have him ready, or did she get him ready?
Yeah, I had him ready. I left him in his car seat.
Okay. How long had he been in his car seat?
After McDonald's, it was only like half hour, 45 minutes maybe.
Okay.
It was right after McDonald's. I just left him in his car seat and then...
You didn't take him back out?
No, because usually she's there at like 9:30.
Was he awake the whole time?
No, he was sleeping.
When?
The whole time.
The whole time you babysat him?
Well, no, I mean, like, after he got there, he was up for, like, a couple hours, and then I fed him, and then I put him in the pack and play, and then I have this little camera, like, the video monitor, and then, like, I didn't check on him because I have that now, so, like...
And he was in your back bedroom, or?
In our bedroom.
In your bedroom? In a pack and play?
And then,
Are you okay?
yeah, I'm just, like, half asleep.
Okay. So the reason we're here, Brittany, I'm sure you must be asking yourself this, right?
Not Brittany.
I'm sorry. Marissa. You have a sister, Brittany, right?
Yeah.
The reason we're here is...
Although the audio here is redacted, we can infer that she informs Marissa that Benson is deceased.
Why is he dead?
We were hoping that you could shed some light on that.
I don't know what
And
How?
I need you to tell me what happened.
I don't know what happened.
This is the most important conversation you will ever have in your life.
I'm telling you. I don't.
No, you're not telling me. You didn't tell me last time, and you're not telling me now, and I need you to tell me the truth. Heather deserves to know what happened.
I know.
But when police made it clear to Marissa that they were not buying her story, she changed her narrative. And she was now telling police that while she had not killed Benson, she had known that he was dead when she gave him back to his mother, Heather. Marissa then told police that she had been home alone with the children when Benson died. However, she had never checked him for a pulse, she never tried to administer CPR, and she never called for help. She claimed that she had put the baby down for a nap in a pack and play, but Benson had never woken back up from that nap. She then admitted that she had put the lifeless baby's body on the floor in the hallway of her home, dressed him in his snowsuit, then placed him in his car seat with his blankets. When her boyfriend Adam returned home around 6:30 p.m., Marissa never told him about the baby's death, but instead buckled Benson's car seat into the car and drove with Adam and Heather's 2 boys to a nearby McDonald's, where they would bring the dead baby in with them and sit and eat for 15 minutes. Marissa also admitted that she had purposely pulled Benson's hat down over his eyes so that his mother, Heather, would not realize he was dead when she came to pick him up. And immediately after Heather had picked up the boys from her, Marissa and her boyfriend Adam had gone to the hotel to go swimming. Marissa's story kept changing, but eventually she would come clean and say that she had become frustrated with the baby and violently thrown him into a portable playpen. Police ended up arresting Marissa on the suspicion of child abuse that day, October 19, 2018, around 4:15 a.m. at the Plaza Hotel, and she would later be charged with first-degree murder. So Benson's mother, Heather, had no idea about Marissa's extensive criminal history prior to her letting her watch her boys. Between 2010 and 2018, Marissa had been charged with possession of drug paraphernalia a number of times, and she had also been charged with receiving/concealing stolen property. She also had charges of operating a motor vehicle without a valid license, bail jumping, resisting arrest, obstructing an officer, and retail theft. Heather also had no idea that Marissa had a total of 5 children herself, but she had lost custody of the first 4. She also would have lost custody of the 5th child prior to this, had Child Protective Services known that she had had another one. And at the time of Benson's death, Marissa was actually pregnant with her 6th child. Now, back in June of 2010, Marissa's boyfriend Adam, who was also the father of her children, filed a child abuse injunction as well as a restraining order against Marissa. The boyfriend alleged that Marissa was using drugs and being abusive to their less than 1-year-old son. He additionally accused her of leaving their son inside of a hot car. Adam had stopped home during his lunch break to see that his son was sitting in the car outside alone. When he tried to bring the child into the house to cool him down, Marissa would not let either of them inside. The child was red and sweaty in the face. Additionally, Marissa would slap her boyfriend right in front of the baby. About a week after this incident, Marissa had left the house with the child in the middle of a rainstorm to go to a party. The child's father was eventually able to get him back, but Marissa refused to give him any formula for the baby or food stamps. Now, after Marissa had lost her own children, she still continued on with a pattern of abuse, abusing other people's children. Apparently, the daycare that she had been running out of her home was unlicensed, and it had been reported that at least 2 other children had been harmed while in her care. In June of 2017, the parents of a 3-month-old baby boy had contacted the police to let them know that their child had been injured while in Marissa's care. Marissa and the child's mother had actually been old friends, and Marissa had volunteered to watch her children that day because her other babysitters had fallen through. The day after this 3-month-old had obtained the injury, the child's mother went to drop him off at his regular babysitter's house. The sitter immediately noticed that the 3-month-old had redness and bruising around his eyes and mouth, a bruise on his finger, bloodshot eyes, and a lump on his head. The baby's mother told the babysitter that Marissa had watched them the day prior and had said that she accidentally dropped the bottle on the baby's face. The mother said that she was thinking about taking him to the doctor in the next few days. However, after she left, the babysitter determined that these injuries were much too serious and she contacted the police. The baby was then taken to the emergency room. Marissa had actually told the baby's mother that the older sister had been jumping on the couch while she was trying to feed the baby a bottle. However, the older sibling had fallen on top of Marissa, causing her to hit the baby in the face with the bottle. He only had a small bruise under his eye and was fine, is what Marissa had told the mother. But when doctors at Marshfield Clinic later examined the baby boy, they determined that many of his injuries were not caused by an isolated incident. The baby boy actually had a skull fracture, which doctors said had to have occurred in the 48 hours prior to him being brought to the hospital. Police also found that the baby's injuries were inconsistent with the story that Marissa had told. However, she was never charged. This was apparently because authorities said there was not enough probable cause to file charges. Then, a little over a year after this incident, the parents of an 11-month-old girl would go to the police and say that she had also gotten hurt while in Marissa's care. This little girl had injuries to her face. Marissa told the girl's parents, as well as the police, that the 11-month-old had been sleeping on the couch when she had suddenly rolled off. But doctors said that her injuries were not consistent with a fall off of the couch. However, they could not say exactly where they had come from. The girl's father told police that it looked like she had a giant rug burn across her face, like she had been dragged across the carpet. And the girl's mother said that 2 years after this incident, the little girl still did not like to have her head or face touched. This made it difficult for her to wash the little girl's face, hair, brush her teeth, or any other normal activities. This little girl also did not hit her normal developmental milestones at the same time most children do. This time, charges were filed against Marissa, and she was charged with child abuse in regards to this incident on October 11th, 2018, only a week before Benson was killed. The girl's mother also told police that she had known Marissa for about a year, and Marissa would regularly watch the 11-month-old and her older sister at her apartment. The mother, however, said she had never had any issues with Marissa up until that day when she had to watch both of the children. Normally, she would only watch one or the other. When social workers along with police had visited Marissa and Adam's apartment after this report had been filed, social services removed their youngest child from the parents' custody. Marissa became upset, but Adam would begin yelling at police and the social worker. However, eventually he called his father to come take their son. Adam's father then told police that he was responsible for having the couple's first 4 kids removed when they were doing drugs, and if he believed for a moment their son was being mistreated, he would have notified authorities. In regards to the abuse of the 11-month-old girl, Marissa was actually scheduled to appear in court on November 1st, 2018. But about 2 weeks prior to that, Benson had been killed and she had been arrested. Marissa was charged with first-degree intentional homicide in relation to the death of Benson. She was held on a $500,000 cash bond and also ordered to have no contact with the victim's family. Twice while in custody, Marissa would also request that the court lower her bond because she said she was not receiving proper prenatal care while in jail. Oh, now you care about children? In a letter that she had written to the judge asking for this bond to be lowered, she had said, "I'm not a threat to society or a monster. I'm a great mom and I love everybody." In March of 2022, Marissa went to trial, and her defense attorney argued that she was not responsible for Benson's murder because she had brain damage caused by prolonged substance abuse. The defense also said that while Marissa was horrible and did deserve punishment, she also needed help. Her attorney told the court how Marissa's father had abandoned her when she was young. She had then lived with a perverted stepfather who would pay her and her sister to show him their body parts. Additionally, Marissa's mother was a drug addict and had sold her to 2 drug dealers in exchange for drugs. Marissa had then grown up to be a drug addict to deal with the trauma from her childhood, her lawyer claimed. Marissa's lawyer also asked the judge to only give her 14 years in prison. The judge would say that while he understood that Marissa had had a troubled childhood and that she had been abused, nothing in her past justified what she had done to Benson. Marissa would end up being sentenced to 37 years behind bars for Benson's murder. She also ended up receiving 3 years for her other charge of child abuse. Marissa's sentences are to be served consecutively and will be followed by 20 years of supervised release. The Marathon County judge said that the families of the 2 babies were justified in considering Marissa to be a monster. "What you have done to these 2 families is depraved," the judge said. Marissa also apologized to the 2 families, Benson's family and the family of the 11-month-old girl who she had hurt. Marissa said that October 18th, 2018 was the worst day of her life. She said if she could go back to that day, she would have told Benson's mother what had happened because she did not deserve to find out herself at the laundromat. Benson's mother and other family members wore sweatshirts with Benson's picture on them and the words "Justice for Benson" to the sentencing hearing. Heather said about her son, "He was a very easy baby, always smiling. He loved being tickled and taking car rides." Benson's mother said she thinks and wonders about him a lot. She wonders what his first words would have been and where he would have taken his first steps. She said that she thinks about all the firsts that Benson will never get to have because of Marissa. Benson's funeral was held privately on October 28, 2018. His family also gathered together on the 1-year anniversary of baby Benson's murder, and they sent lit lanterns into the sky in his memory. Well, thank you for listening to Benson's story today. Marissa is absolutely sick. Not only did she regularly hurt children, but when Benson died in her care, she also acted like it didn't happen and everything was fine, giving a dead baby back to his mother. And all the smiling and laughing that you can see her doing in the police body cam footage is just infuriating and disgusting. I'm glad that she'll be in prison for most of the rest of her life. Eviana Burke was born on March 13, 2013 to her mother, Lila Burke, and she was a happy, healthy baby girl. But that quickly changed one day when she was less than 3 months old. Eviana's mother, Lila, had to return to work following her maternity leave in May of 2013. So she decided to start paying her cousin, Savannah Humphreys, to watch her daughter during the day. Lila and Savannah had grown up together, and they were best friends as well as cousins. So Lila completely trusted her. Savannah had a young son and daughter of her own, and she would regularly watch 1 or 2 other children out of her home. So baby Eviana had been going to Savannah's for a couple of weeks when her mother Lila dropped her off on the morning of June 12, 2013, a little after 4 a.m. Lila gave her baby girl a kiss, told her she loved her, and headed into work. At 12:45 p.m., Lila received a video from Savannah of her daughter, and in it, Eviana looked happy and healthy. But then, shortly before her workday ended around 2 p.m., Lila received a terrifying phone call. It was from Savannah's husband, Sean, and he informed her that she needed to get to the hospital right away because Eviana wasn't breathing. Lila immediately hung up the phone, and her supervisor drove her to the hospital. When she arrived, the baby girl was having seizures, and the mother was told that she had skull fractures to both sides of her head and was bleeding in her brain. She also had extreme retinal damage and bruising to her forehead and arm. Unable to handle this information, Lila passed out. When emergency responders had found Eviana in Savannah's apartment, she had been cool to the touch and not breathing. Savannah's neighbor was actually the one who had contacted 911. Due to the extent of baby Eviana's injuries, the Department of Children's Services and the Clarksville Police immediately began investigating. As such, when Eviana was being transported to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee for more intensive care, her mother was not allowed to be in the back of the ambulance with her. Lila's other daughter, 2-year-old Nevaeh, would also be taken into state custody at this time and temporarily placed with Lila's mother. Lila was overwhelmed and confused about what had happened to her precious baby girl, and her cousin, whom she'd entrusted with Eviana's care, wasn't there. So she called up her cousin Savannah and asked her what had happened to her daughter. Savannah told Lila that she had been feeding Eviana when suddenly the baby started to choke. When Savannah went to wipe the throw-up off of Eviana's face, she wasn't breathing. Yet authorities would not find vomit on any other surfaces in the apartment. Savannah's story would change a few more times as well, and she would end up telling Eviana's mother, Lila, that the baby had rolled off the bed when she had stepped out of the room for a minute. Then she would tell her that she had rolled off of the couch. Now, when Savannah spoke with investigators, she first told them that she had laid Eviana down for a nap in a bassinet-like bed that was next to the couch. Shortly after, she noticed the baby was coughing and had spit up. When Savannah went to wipe her mouth, she discovered Eviana wasn't breathing. When she realized this, she went to get her neighbor, who then called 911. So similar to what she had told Lila, only this time Eviana was napping, not eating. After detectives further pressed Savannah, her story changed, and she would tell them that she had changed Eviana's clothes, then taken a video of her at 12:45 p.m. But prior to taking that video, Savannah had briefly left the room, and when she returned, she saw her 2-year-old daughter holding baby Eviana by the door. The toddler accidentally dropped the baby, who then began crying. According to Savannah, though, Eviana seemed fine after this incident. So she fed her, played with her, and then laid her down for a nap like normal. There was nothing wrong with the little girl, she insisted. It had been 20 minutes after laying Eviana down that Savannah said she noticed the baby coughing, then realized she wasn't breathing. It was later on that Savannah's third story would emerge. But this had only come after police had spoken with her neighbor, Ciara Jenkins, the one who had called 911 that day. And they had gotten a different story from her about what had happened to Eviana. According to the neighbor Ciara, who she had been smoking outside with, the two had met outside the building at 1:45 p.m. Savannah was acting normal and told Ciara that she had fed the baby, then laid her down for a nap. They then spent the next 15 to 20 minutes smoking, talking, and using their phones. During this time, Savannah's son was running up and down the interior of the apartment building and knocking on the windows. Ciara believed that he was trying to get his mother's attention. However, Savannah just ignored him and kept using her phone. When Savannah and Ciara had gone back inside, Ciara told police that she had seen Savannah's 2-year-old daughter holding baby Eviana. The infant was dangling from her arms, and as she explained it, the toddler was pulling the baby. Eviana's head was back, and she was unconscious. There was also spit up on her. According to Ciara, Savannah grabbed the baby away from the toddler, and at the same time told Ciara to call 911. Emergency services were then called at 2:03 p.m. And at the same time, Savannah brought Eviana back inside, laid her on the ground, and began performing CPR. So this is also what Savannah's story had changed to at that point, and she told authorities that the only reason why her 2-year-old daughter had picked up the baby in the first place was because Eviana had started crying, and she only dropped her accidentally. Savannah denied ever hurting the infant. The thing is, a doctor would later testify that the skull fractures found on Eviana would not have been caused by a 2-year-old child dropping the baby. It was highly unlikely that a child of that age could have gotten enough force to drop Eviana to the ground to cause those types of injuries. Not to mention, the injuries to Eviana's brain were something that would have been caused by a rotational force, the brain being hit back and forth inside the skull, rather than just one impact, like the baby being dropped. Baby Eviana would end up staying in the hospital for a total of 2 months, during which time she was placed in a coma-like state for a few days to give her brain time to rest and heal. After all of this, the little girl would miraculously pull through and survive. However, due to her injuries, Eviana would end up blind from her retinal hemorrhages. She would also be diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, cerebral palsy, and she was expected to have significant developmental delays as well as continued seizures. Her brain was also not expected to grow at a normal rate, causing her head to appear smaller than normal. 25-year-old Savannah Humphrey would be arrested on charges of aggravated child abuse and aggravated child neglect. And in October of 2014, a jury would deliberate for less than an hour before they found her guilty on these charges. Savannah was then sentenced to 2 concurrent terms of 17 to 20 years, 1 for each charge. She filed a motion to have a new trial, but that was denied in 2016. At Savannah's sentence hearing, Eviana's mother, Lila, wept for her then 18-month-old daughter, and she said, "I will never get to see my child get married or have kids because Savannah took that from us. My child will never see me or her sister. I pray one day she will walk, talk, or sit up on her own. At this time, all I can do is hold her." The past 15 months have been the worst of our lives. I struggle every day to deal with what has happened to my child, and it hurts past my soul. I cry every night to sleep. I have to look at my baby in the face every day and be reminded of what happened on June 12, 2013. It tore my heart up to see my family get torn apart even more. Lila then turned to her cousin Savannah, and she said to her, "Savannah, you are my cousin, and I love you very much. We grew up together and I trusted you, and you broke that trust. I hope that one day you will be able to tell what happened, or at least see it from Eviana's view. Her life has changed as well as mine in so many ways. I don't know how much time I have with her. I thank God for each day she wakes up. I always said my kids would bury me first, but in this case, it may not happen that way. I would like to tell Savannah I love and forgive you, but I cannot forget what happened on June 12, 2013. In court, Savannah would also apologize for what happened to Eviana that day. Eviana now attends therapy 4 days a week and is constantly at doctor's offices for her blindness, seizure disorder, and developmental issues. She is not expected to ever stand or walk on her own. However, she can now sit up by herself. Combined with several days of homeschooling, Eviana also still attends a traditional school multiple times a week. Her mother, Lila, claims that Eviana has her good days and her bad days, but many days, all the little girl does is laugh and smile. Lila said of her daughter, "She is a fighter, she's my hero. For everything she's been through, she's still fighting." Eviana loves being sung to and being held by her mom. Nothing gives her more joy. Her big sister, Nevaeh, loves her little sister and helping to care for Eviana too. In 2016, Eviana's mother, Layla Burke, was honored as Mother of the Year by the Tennessee Justice Center, a nonprofit public interest law and advocacy firm serving Tennessee families. The award was in recognition of her love and dedication to gaining support and health care for her daughter. Well, thank you for listening to Eviana's story today. As sad and awful as what this little girl went through at the hands of her trusted babysitter, I'm so glad that in the end she pulled through. And regardless of the everyday struggles that Eviana now faces, she's still a vibrant and happy little girl. Mika Marie Carrillo, or Mika Xiong, was born on August 1st, 2019 in Fargo, North Dakota. Her parents were Manuel Carrillo and Cheyenne Xiong. Mika was a bubbly and loving toddler who was always giggling. She had taken her first steps right around her first birthday, and she was also adored by her cousins and sister. Mika was a very good baby who rarely cried, and she loved giving her family hugs and kisses all the time. For reasons unknown, ever since Mika was born, she was in the custody of her aunt, Amanda Carrillo. And only a few months after Mika was born, her real mother would die of unknown causes, and her father would be sent to jail for fleeing in a vehicle, methamphetamine possession, reckless driving, and driving on a suspended license. So since Amanda had had custody of Mika for so long, she thought of her more as a daughter than as a niece. And Amanda also had children of her own, who all adored their cousin or sister, Mika. So on the weekend of Halloween in 2020, a longtime trusted family friend by the name of Brandy Adelke asked Amanda if Mika could sleep over for the weekend. Now, Brandy had watched Amanda's other children in the past with no problems, so when she came to ask her if Mika could spend the weekend, she figured why not? And she knew that Mika would have fun, possibly handing out candy and seeing the trick-or-treaters. So the day before Halloween, October 30th, Amanda would drop Mika off at Brandy's Fargo, North Dakota apartment. So after the weekend went by, Amanda went over Brandy's house to pick up Mika. This is when Brandy told her that Mika actually had a fever because somebody in the house had contracted COVID and they needed to quarantine together for 2 weeks. So she told her that she would need to keep Mika at her house for 2 more weeks. Amanda, for whatever reason, agreed to this. If it was my kid, I tell you, I don't care. They're coming home with me. They're not spending another 2 weeks at a friend's house. No way. But that's just me. So more than 2 weeks later, when the quarantine period should have been over on November 20th, Brandy showed up at Amanda's house, but she didn't have Mika with her. She told Amanda that Mika was on her way to the hospital, but it was only because she was sick. She was just sick. Nothing else was wrong. That's what Brandy told her, at least. So Brandy told Amanda that she would meet her at the hospital, and Amanda wondered to herself, why hadn't Brandy gone in the ambulance with Mika? She was only 15 months old. That's a little odd. So Amanda rushed to Sanford Health, where Mika had been transported to. When she arrived, Amanda saw that there were CPS workers as well as police officers who were holding brown paper evidence bags and rulers that were meant to measure Mika's wounds. They also had on them evidence recording equipment. This immediately made Amanda feel sick to her stomach. And Amanda couldn't control herself. She looked over at Brandy and said, "What did you do to my niece?" And Brandy replied with, "She's just sick. She's just sick, Amanda. She's fine. She's gonna be fine." And Amanda yelled back at her, "This does not look fine." When the police officers at the hospital spoke with Amanda, it became very clear that Brandy was lying. Mika was a lot more than just sick. Mika had actually been horribly abused that weekend at Brandy's. The little girl had been beaten, burned with chemicals, given alcohol, and raped in multiple ways. Due to all of Mika's injuries, she had been put into protective services when she arrived at the hospital. And unfortunately, the doctors had to put little Mika on life support due to her extensive injuries, and she had no brain activity. This was most likely because Mika had been dead for 2 minutes before anyone had even tried to resuscitate her. The doctors had very little hope that Mika would pull through. And then just 4 days later, on November 24th, 2020, she still had no brain activity, at which point her family decided to unplug her life support, and Mika Carrillo was pronounced dead. Apparently, at 10:30 p.m. on November 20th, Brandy had called the emergency first responders. When the first responders arrived to the apartment, which was located on 17th Street South in Fargo, they found that Mika had a weak pulse, was unresponsive, her skin was blue, and she had suspicious bruising throughout her entire body. When police asked Brandy what had happened, she said that she had given Mika a bath because the little girl had been running a fever. She then told them that she left her in the bath by herself for up to 2 hours unsupervised. She said during these 2 hours, that's when Mika slipped underwater, and she doesn't know how long she was under the water for. since, she wasn't watching her like she was supposed to because she's the babysitter. When the investigators asked Brandy about Mika's suspicious bruising, she said they were the result of the life-saving measures she had performed on Mika when she had stopped breathing. She said that she had pinched and slapped the toddler's face in an effort to get her to regain consciousness. She claimed that Mika actually had regained consciousness briefly. She had coughed, and then Brandy said she gave her some juice. She claims that after this, Mika again fell unresponsive, and it was at that time that she called 911. Police also said that the claims of COVID-19 infecting Brandy's apartment were completely false. Now, for some reason, police said they needed to wait for the autopsy report as well as the toxicology report to come back before they could arrest anyone, because they wanted to make sure that a crime had actually been committed. Which blows my effing mind. Like, isn't that the most obvious thing in the world, that a crime has been committed? Just looking at the little girl? Come on. During this waiting period, while nobody was being arrested for Mika's brutal death, her aunt Amanda said that there had been numerous people that had known about the abuse that was going on, and they had all failed to reach out for help and let the abuse continue until it was too late. So Amanda wanted to see not only Brandy prosecuted, but also the people who had just stood by and let this happen. Though it's never been revealed who these other people were and what they had seen. So when Mika's autopsy was finally completed, it was determined that the little girl's cause of death was homicide, caused by numerous blunt force injuries that were found to be non-accidental and inflicted by another person. And Amanda would say that there were even more horrific details about the torture and murder of Mika, but she doesn't want the world to have to know those details and suffer, as her and her family keep replaying it over and over in their minds. So on January 14th, 2021, 37-year-old Brandy Adelke was arrested and charged. She was charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of felony child abuse. Brandy requested to get a $1,000 bail, and she wanted to be put on house arrest instead of being in prison until her trial date. She said it was because she had just recently started a new job. Okay, and you just murdered a child, so your new job can go shove it. The court instead slapped her with a $1 million bail bond. In September of 2021, when her trial started, Brandy Adelke pleaded guilty to 1 felony count each of murder and child abuse in the Cass County District Court after she had initially entered a plea of not guilty. She was now facing a maximum penalty of life in prison. During the trial, the state attorney would tell the court that Mika was covered head to toe in bruises. And he added, "Usually I say that metaphorically, but not in this incident." Brandy's defense attorney would say that her watching Mika had proved to just be too much for her, and instead of reaching out for help, she had just made a tragic mistake. All the injuries on that little girl is a lot more than just a mistake. And when it came time for Mika's family to read their victim impact statements out loud, Brandy began to cry. A letter written by Mika's grandmother, Mika Carrillo, was read out loud. She wrote about how her and her family had to take her granddaughter off of life support only 3 months after they had just celebrated her first birthday. "My husband and I had to watch our family listen to the devastating news about a beautiful little girl who was beaten and tortured by somebody that we trusted. We had to watch our son make the toughest decision of his life to pull the plug and let his baby stop suffering. I would not wish this on anyone, not even you, Brandy." She also added that the police had told the family to not read Mika's autopsy report because it would forever change them. And one of the things that Amanda would say while she was reading her victim impact statement was, "I don't understand how you take the life of an innocent child and what she could have done so badly that made you hurt her like this. I know I will never get the answers to these questions. I feel pain anytime I walk through the door because there's something missing. I feel pain when I hear my kids laugh because Mika's laughter is missing. And Amanda also said that she will never forgive herself for letting Brandy watch her niece Mika that weekend. Brandy also spoke and said she didn't mean for this to happen. Not sure how you didn't mean for all those injuries to happen because they're not accidental.
I'm sorry to the family. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to happen. And I'm sorry.
I feel pain every time I walk through my door because there's something's missing. I feel pain every time I hear my kids laugh because there's a little laughter missing.
It was barely 1 year ago when Amanda Carrillo's world changed forever.
Never in a million years. Like, she's watched almost everybody's kids, and like nobody ever thought that she would do something like this.
A friend of the Carrillo family for over 5 years, Brandy Adelke was having a sleepover with 15-month-old Mika at her South Fargo apartment last November when Adelke's defense attorney says Adelke just couldn't handle it anymore.
I don't understand how you could take a life of an innocent child and what she could have done so badly that made you hurt her.
When admitted to the hospital, doctors and investigators found blunt force trauma up and down Mika's small body. Details so gruesome, Cass County State's Attorney Ryan Youngren declined to recount. In a letter to the court penned by Mika's grandmother, Cindy, she wrote of the immense heartache felt by the family, words that choked up even the seasoned prosecutor.
Mika's 3-year-old sister, Octavia, asks, when Mika gets bigger, will she wake up and play with me? How do you explain that to a 3-year-old? I would not wish this on anyone, not even you, Brandy.
Adelke's sentence comes directly from the wishes of Mika's father, who Carrillo says was adamant he didn't want Adelke to spend the rest of her life in prison.
I would forgive her, but I would never forget what she's done. He's like, me giving her a life sentence is not going to bring my daughter back.
Carrillo says her family will never be the same and says while she's glad Adelke finally took responsibility, justice won't ever fully be served without Mika here in the world.
She was sentenced by a Cass County District Court judge to 50 years, and she would be eligible for parole after 30. And I just wanted to note as well that many news outlets have it reported as her only receiving 30 years. However, she did receive 50, and after 30, like I said, that's when she can possibly receive parole. A private funeral mass was held for Mika, which was live streamed on Saturday, February 6, 2021. And in August of 2021, Mika's family celebrated what would have been her second birthday. The family said each day is a reminder of the life that was taken far too soon. And Amanda said that Mika's sister Octavia turns to Mika's urn every night. She'll sing her Rockabye Baby, and then she kisses the urn and says, "She's up there." Then she will smile and tell Amanda, "I'm going to bed now." And the family also sold Justice for Mika shirts and car decals to raise money to plant a tree in Gooseberry Park in Mika's honor. Well, thank you for listening to all of Mika's story today. Like I said, I just have a lot of questions that remain unanswered in this case. My first being, why? What was this woman's motive? Especially after being friends with Amanda and the family for years. And did Brandy tell Amanda that somebody in the house had COVID because she was already looking kind of beaten and bruised and she wanted to maybe give her time to recover? Clearly she didn't, but maybe that was the thought. Or was this already planned ahead of time? And that's why she needed to keep her for the additional 2 weeks. Not to mention, Brandy was the one who originally asked to have Mika sleep over. So it seems like it might have been premeditated. I'm also very curious about who these other people were that saw the abuse going on and didn't do anything. Because nobody else has been prosecuted. So it's absolutely heartbreaking what this poor little baby had to go through. Vile and senseless. So if you do like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and turn on your notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is 2 to 3 times every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys, bye. Annabelle Sophia Louise Noles was born on July 10, 2017, in Cameron, Wyoming, to her mother, Kayla Karchner. Her biological father's name is unknown. However, her mother's current boyfriend, Jason Geek, was listed as her father in her obituary. She also had a little sister who was more like a best friend. Her name was Elena. Annabelle was said to be a smart and sweet little girl who was beautiful both on the inside and out. She loved unicorns, anything princess, Disney, and Tinkerbell. Annabelle additionally liked playing dress-up, and she loved anything that was pink or sparkly. Now, starting in September of 2022, Annabelle's mother, Kayla, arranged for a woman named Sherry Marler to babysit her daughters. Kayla had posted on social media, looking for a sitter 2 days a week. But after she dropped Annabelle and her sister off with Sherry, this quickly changed, and she watched them for several months, with Kayla only visiting them a few times in this period. According to Sherry, the mother only saw them when she brought them to Kayla's work at the Arctic Circle. A few months into babysitting the girls, on November 25, 2022, Sherry placed a phone call to 911 around 3:40 p.m., stating that Annabelle was unresponsive. She stated that the little girl had fallen down the stairs. When first responders arrived on the scene, they found little Annabelle with no pulse. They also noticed that she had bruises on her body and bald patches on her head. She would be rushed to a nearby hospital, then airlifted to Primary Children's Hospital in Utah. The little girl had a broken back, broken jaw, bleeding on her brain, bald patches of hair on her head, and extensive cuts and bruising that indicated she had both new and old injuries. Sadly, there was nothing that the doctors could do for her, and 5-year-old Annabelle would pass away the following day. While the little girl had still been fighting for her life, detectives asked her babysitter, Sherry Marler, to come down to the station to speak with her. Going into this interview with Sherry, police already had their suspicions about her story, that Annabelle had just simply fallen down the stairs. This was partially due to the severity of the girl's injuries and partially due to the fact that a box had sat neatly at the top of these stairs, and a dog's water bowl sat undisturbed at the bottom. There was also no blood, flesh, or torn hair found on the stairs. Authorities had, however, been told by Annabelle's younger sister that Annabelle had fallen down the set of stairs. But chances are she was just coached into saying this prior to police arriving by Sherry. So the interrogation with the babysitter would drag on for over 5.5 hours, with multiple officers interviewing her. She was insistent that she had done nothing to cause the death of the 5-year-old, and it had just merely been an accident. But finally, after much urging from authorities, Sherry would tell the truth about what had happened to Annabelle. She informed the detective that she was a fucking horrible person for hitting a child. Then Sherry went on to say that Annabelle had been a terror and bullying the other girls who were in her care. She also claimed that Annabelle had been messing up her furniture, climbing all over things, stealing from her, and lying. The babysitter then admitted to hitting the little girl with some kitchen utensils. On the day that 911 had been called, she confessed to slapping Annabelle, as well as hitting her up to 10 times in a clapping motion, with the girl's head between her hands. Sherry said, "I smacked her too hard." Then, when Annabelle later went to Sherry to try to apologize to her for being so difficult, the babysitter stated that she had kicked the girl in the chest and told her to go away. After this, Annabelle went to lay down in the other room. And shortly after, Sherry claimed that she had found her unconscious, limp, and she had something oozing from her nostril. At that point, Sherry had called 911. She also stated that she tried to perform CPR on Annabelle, but she didn't know how to. Great babysitter to hire. Following her admissions, Sherry Marler was placed under arrest, and she was charged with first-degree murder and aggravated CA. About a year into her being held awaiting her trial, she asked that the confession that she had given to police be excluded from the trial evidence. She insisted that she had been coerced into giving this confession. However, a judge refuted the claims and said that it was to be kept as evidence. This was an argument that Sherry's defense would try to make at her trial too, which started in May of 2024. They said that Sherry had confessed to police not because she had actually hurt Annabelle, but because she wanted the interview to end. When giving evidence in her own defense, Sherry would take the stand and state that the girl's mother, Kayla, had been looking for childcare 2 days a week, starting in September. She had posted on social media, and once Sherry responded, 2 days a week suddenly turned into her becoming the girl's primary caregiver. Later, when Kayla went to testify, the mother's troubled history, marked by homelessness, addiction, physical abuse, and alleged neglect of her children, was revealed. So Sherry stated that once Kayla had dropped off Annabelle and her sister, she didn't return. According to her, Annabelle was underweight at the time and could only eat certain foods because of her rotting teeth. On the stand, Sherry was also now trying to say that Annabelle, whom she once said was a difficult child, was affectionate and clingy. Sherry claimed that she had tried to get Kayla to be more involved in her daughter's lives, but she rarely saw them during these 2 months. The only time she did was when Sherry brought them to Kayla's job. Then Sherry admitted that she had become upset that the girl's mother would not visit them. And at this point, she had financial worries of her own. However, Sherry still insisted that she had never hurt Annabelle. The 5-year-old had been injured earlier that day while she was playing on a swing set, and then later on a bunk bed as well. Then, her more serious injuries, the fatal ones, had come later on when she had fallen down the stairs. Sherry additionally testified that the girl's mother and father, Kayla and Jason, had come to take them on November 23rd, 2 days before 911 had been called, trying to place the blame for Annabelle's deadly injuries on them. The thing is, Sherry's outdoor camera did not capture the parents coming to her home as she claimed. She had an excuse for that, though, and said that that was because the parents liked to use an alternative entrance to her home, which was also highly unlikely since this path was knotted over by branches and other obstacles. According to Sherry, Annabelle's mother, Kayla, would return the girls back to her later that same day. When she did, she was alone. Jason wasn't with her, and Kayla had 2 black eyes. Sherry claimed that the girls no longer wanted to stay with their parents. Although this claim was countered by a police recording that was taken at the scene of Annabelle's younger sister, as she was heard pleading to go home with her father instead of staying with Sherry. After many, if not all, of Sherry's inconsistencies and lies were rebutted on the stand, an expert on child abuse would testify. He said that the 5-year-old's injuries were not something that simply could have been caused by a fall down the stairs. They had instead been caused at the hands of another. Then there was 4 medical experts who testified during Sherry's trial. One of them was a brain expert who said that Annabelle's injuries were similar to those that would have been obtained in a car crash or by shaken baby syndrome. Another doctor testified that her injuries would have caused her death within 15 hours of them being inflicted, not 3 days, meaning they could not have possibly been caused by her parents, even if they had picked her up 3 days prior to her death, as Sherry claimed. The doctor firmly stated that the stairs were not a reasonable explanation for Annabelle's variety of serious injuries. On top of this, detectives had also discovered that Sherry had told an acquaintance that she was sick of Annabelle and hated her. She told this person that she just wanted to kill the little girl. In the end, it took a jury about half a day to find Annabelle's babysitter, Sherry Marler, guilty of first-degree murder and CA. During Sherry's sentence hearing that took place in June of 2024, multiple family members of hers spoke on her behalf, asking for a more lenient sentence. She was possibly facing life in prison without parole. Steve Holcomb, Sherry's brother, was one person who spoke in favor of her sentence being more lenient. And he made the claim that the stairs in his sister's home were indeed deadly. According to Stephen, he had gone up and down the same set of stairs that Annabelle had fallen down, and he had also cracked his skull on them. He then said about Sherry, "She's been a person that I've never really cared for," adding, however, that none of her charges make any sense to him, as she had never, ever been a violent person in any way. Sherry's children also made statements, and they would say that she could never hurt anything, not even a butterfly. 3 of her kids testified that they had also fallen down the stairs in their mother's home, and they were indeed dangerous. I'd love to know how insane and unsafe this particular set of stairs are, and why. Seems like just a bunch of nonsense to me, especially since multiple doctors said that her injuries were not possibly caused by the stairs. Then Annabelle's mother, Kayla, would speak, and she would ask the judge for the maximum possible sentence for Sherry. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. And ultimately, this is the exact sentence that the judge would impose on the babysitter. Sherry spoke during the sentence hearing, and since she was now in complete denial of ever hurting Annabelle, she didn't apologize to the girl's family or anything like that. Rather, she just stated how unwell she was and how she planned to appeal her conviction. It said that Annabelle's sister, Elena, has since been removed from her parents' custody and adopted into a nice home where she is loved. The little girl still occasionally talks to and sees her biological mother. Annabelle Noles' funeral was held on Tuesday, December 6, 2022, at White Pine Funeral Home in Logan, Utah. She was then buried in Tooele City Cemetery in Tooele, Utah. Those in attendance were encouraged to wear some form of pink, since it was Annabelle's favorite color, and a live stream of her services was also shared online. Well, thank you for listening to Annabelle's story today. I really want to know why Annabelle and her sister were being watched by Sherry for months on end. They were there for close to 2 months, rarely seeing their parents at all. Not to mention, Annabelle's mother was also arrested a few months after her death on marijuana and methamphetamine charges. She was also said to have a history of mistreating her children prior to this. So I still can't help but think that Annabelle's mother should have been charged with something in regards to her daughter's death. Her father, too. What do you think? Ezra Franklin Schock was born on August 13, 2020, in Sebring, Florida, to his parents, Drew and Kayla Schock. He had the best smile and was a sweet little boy who loved his parents and his big brother Asher immensely. His younger sister Uriel, or Yuri for short, Jane Schock, who shared the same parents, would be born 2 years later on March 5, 2022. The children's parents, Kayla and Drew, both grew up in Wauchula, Florida, and had been friends in high school. They had then reconnected 5 years after graduating and soon decided to get married and have children. A few months before Uriel was born, on December 22, 2021, Kayla's mother, 64-year-old Tracy Nix, and her husband, Nunne Nix, were babysitting 1-year-old Ezra. But that same afternoon, the boy's father, Drew, would receive a phone call from Kayla's father, saying that something had happened to Ezra. Upon hearing this, Drew called Kayla immediately, and she jumped in her car to rush over to her parents' house. On her way there, Kayla was in such a panic that she failed to see a stop sign because she was too busy looking at the medical helicopter that was overhead. This caused her to get into a head-on collision with another car, and she was 6 months pregnant with Uriel at the time. Luckily, Kayla and her unborn baby were not seriously injured, and she was able to get out of the car and continue running to her parents' house. 16-month-old Ezra would need to be airlifted to a nearby hospital where he remained in a coma until the following day, December 23, 2021. And at that point, he passed away. Come to find out, while Kayla's father, Nay, had been out running some errands, her mother, Tracy, was the one responsible for watching Ezra. Or she was supposed to be watching Ezra, that is. But instead, the grandmother had fallen asleep on the couch, and the 16-month-old was able to open the door and wander outside. He was able to get underneath a fence and over to a retention pond that was a few hundred feet away from Tracy's home. This was a pond that the little boy was familiar with too, because he had fed ducks here a number of times with his grandfather in the past. But sadly, with no one there to supervise him this time, Ezra drowned. Since Kayla was pregnant with Uriel, her doctors wanted to make sure that the unborn baby stayed unharmed. So, they suggested the detectives withhold any information in regards to Ezra's death that may cause her to get seriously worked up or emotionally distressed. Even though authorities attempted to press charges against Tracy in regards to Ezra's death, this wouldn't prove possible because a Florida court would state that a one-time lapse in judgment would not establish culpable negligence on her part. So according to Ezra's mother, Kayla, she was not aware that police had even attempted to try to bring charges against her mother, Tracy. She would not be made aware of that, or, due to her doctor's orders, all of the facts surrounding Ezra's death, until much later on, when another tragedy had occurred. So in the meantime, of course, Kayla did not believe that her mother would ever intentionally hurt her child, never mind kill them. And since charges were never filed against Tracy, Kayla was led to believe that Ezra's death was just a terrible accident. So she was willing to give her mother another chance. But at the same time, Kayla and Drew did not exactly trust her to watch their oldest son or their baby Uriel, who would be making her way into the world soon. After Uriel's birth, the very small amount of time that Tracy did see her and her older brother was almost always supervised. Then on November 1st, 2022, almost 11 months after Ezra's death, Kayla reached out to her mother, Tracy, and asked if she could watch 7-month-old Uriel while she went to her hair appointment that afternoon. It was only going to be for a little while, maybe 4 or 5 hours max. Tracy agreed and told her daughter that she was going to lunch with a few friends and she would just bring Uriel with her. These were people that Kayla had known for years, so she trusted them. The restaurant was also only a few minutes down the road from where she was getting her hair done, so she felt comfortable leaving her daughter in her mother's care. But within only a few hours of her dropping Uriel off with Tracy, someone from the Hardy County Sheriff's Department showed up at Kayla's door. When she answered, the officer told her, "Your baby is dead." Kayla replied asking, "I'm sorry, what? I know Ezra's dead. Why are you here? Like, what is this?" But the officer wasn't talking about Ezra. He was talking about Uriel. After Tracy had finished lunch with Uriel and her friends at Beef O'Brady's, she had driven herself and her granddaughter back to her home in her Lexus SUV. It was about a 7-minute drive, and on the way there, Tracy gave the baby girl a bottle, which caused her to fall asleep. When they arrived back at the grandmother's home, Tracy remembered looking in the rearview mirror and seeing nothing, so she got out of the vehicle, leaving Uriel behind. Once inside, Tracy took care of her dog and then played the piano for a long time. The grandmother didn't even remember that Uriel was still in her SUV when she later got back into the vehicle and took it and drove it from the front yard to the barn in the backyard. There, she would speak with her husband for a few minutes while she waited for her other daughter, Rebecca, and her grandson to arrive. That's when Tracy finally remembered her granddaughter, and she asked her husband, Nay, "When did Kayla pick up Uriel?" To which he told her, "I don't know, I've been outside the whole time." Tracy began to panic, and she flung the car door open. Sitting there, still restrained in her car seat, was 7-month-old Uriel. She was visibly deceased. Uriel's grandfather, Nay, immediately took the baby out of her car seat and placed her on the ground, then began administering CPR. But it was already much too late. Uriel wasn't moving or breathing. She was gone. Her onesie was completely soaked in sweat, and rigor mortis had already begun to set in. The temperatures outside that day had reached 90 degrees, meaning that inside the car, with its rolled up windows, it had gotten even hotter. Tracy's other daughter, Rebecca, had arrived at the home with her son at this point, and she called 911. During the call, she can be heard asking her mother, Tracy, how long Uriel had been left in the car, and Tracy said, "A while."
911, where is your emergency? 1478 Haven Road. What's happening at 1478 Haven Road? I'm with my niece on the clock. I don't know. I just pulled up, but we need EMS, like, immediately. Please. All right. Your niece was left in the car? Is she breathing? I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I can't even fathom this right now. My nephew just... Can you get to her so we can answer some questions? No, I don't know what's going on. I can't. My mom I can't. I literally can't. I have no idea. Talk to your dad if he's with your niece? My dad, it has her right now. My dad has her. Oh, Lord. How old is your niece? Oh, my God. This is really, really, really bad. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, ma'am. Rebecca Tucker. My parents are named Tracy Nick.
Okay, ma'am, how old is your niece?
I don't know. She's only a couple months old.
Okay, I need you to be with her because I need to know if she's breathing, and I need to know now.
It doesn't seem like it.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like she's breathing.
No.
Do you know how long she was left in the vehicle?
I have no idea. I just pulled up. Please.
Okay, I have help on the way, but I'm gonna stay on the phone with you while you're there.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, can you?
Well, I have my 12-year-old son.
Okay, how old is your niece? Is it gonna be the baby?
6 months old.
Okay.
Take the cake, please, and I'm gonna take you home. I can't be here for this.
Okay, I understand. This is Kayla's the youngest one?
Yes.
Okay, I need to talk to somebody because I want to do CPR on her.
My dad's doing it right now.
Okay, so the CPR is in progress?
No. Are you doing CPR? Oh my God, she's dead.
Okay, how does she look?
Her eyes are open. She's not moving or breathing.
Eyes are open, not moving or breathing?
Take my son home. That's correct. Hey, Taylor, are you almost done, baby? No. Oh my goodness, this is. Whew, I'm sorry. I keep touching. I can't. Whew. Okay. Whew. Come on, honey. Finish up, please. Let's go. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh Lord. Okay.
Okay. I know that you're wanting to leave. Is there any way I can talk to somebody that's there? Is Tracy there?
I don't know where she's gone to. I don't know where she is. I don't know.
Okay. Does your dad know how to do CPR on an infant?
Yes, he does. Dad, you're doing it, right? Yes, he's doing it. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I know you just got there. Is there any way that somebody can answer how long she's been like this?
Mom! I don't know where she's at. How long was she in the car? A while. She was in the car. Took her to lunch with you. Okay. All right, ma'am.
Okay, so she took her to lunch with her, and then whenever she got back, she was just left in the car?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Shortly after she had discovered her granddaughter's body, Tracy had turned away from the SUV and ran towards the barn. She'd later claimed that she was looking for something, anything, to hurt herself with. Tracy wanted to be gone and said she couldn't bear to face her daughter and her daughter's husband and tell them what had happened. But the grandmother wouldn't end up hurting herself because police would arrive on the scene shortly after. When they arrived, Tracy was heard on police body cam saying, "I don't want to face anybody. I can't face my daughter. I cannot do that."
Come having deja vu right when I'm pulling up because I'm seeing the exact same scene that I seen when I pulled up with Ezra. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I never in a million years would have thought again.
They told me that my baby was dead.
Did you just go into complete shock? I mean, the pain must have been unbearable.
Absolutely. I absolutely remember
Kayla
fully putting my phone down and screaming to know that ultimately the person that brought me into the world is the person that destroyed his world, my son. That's just unbearable.
The grandmother would then refuse to speak to anybody about the tragedy for the next few days. Eventually, her husband would end up sending her to a mental health facility so she could come to terms with what had happened. Meanwhile, a medical examiner would determine that Uriel had died from hyperthermia as a result of being left in a vehicle by an adult for several hours with the windows rolled up and the vehicle not running. Her death was ruled a homicide. Uriel's grandmother, Tracy Nix, would be arrested, and she was charged with aggravated manslaughter and leaving a child unattended in a motor vehicle. She made bail shortly after, and once Tracy was back home, she claimed that she didn't want to eat, get out of bed, or really even exist. So, she would be sent to a second mental health facility where she would stay for a total of 7 weeks. When Tracy did speak with authorities, she insisted that she had just forgotten about Uriel. Tracy stated that when she had gotten out of her car, she hadn't rushed into her home to do anything specific. She just completely forgot about her granddaughter. Part of the reason that Tracy had forgotten to take Uriel out of her SUV, she claimed, was because when she had picked the baby girl up from her mother's work, Kayla had gone out to the SUV to install the car seat for her. Normally, it would be placed behind the passenger's seat, but since there was a car that was too close on that side, Kayla had instead put it behind the driver's side. But it was only a 10-minute drive from the restaurant back to Tracy's home. And the grandmother had never shown any serious signs of having memory problems that would have contributed to this. In fact, Tracy was a very intelligent woman who had a psychology degree and had worked as a principal and educator for 39 years, where she was highly regarded. So how could 2 children die on her watch? Uriel's mother, Kayla, and father, Drew, were rightfully angry, and they wanted to see Tracy go to prison for what she had done. Because while Kayla had previously believed that Ezra's death was just an accident, she didn't understand how yet another accident could happen less than a year later. At this point, the parents were additionally given the full incident report in regards to Ezra's death. That's when red flags began going off. Tracy had been the primary caregiver for Ezra that day back in December of 2021. According to her husband, Nay, he had left to go to Walmart, and when he did, Ezra was sleeping on the recliner. Tracy was still awake. But Tracy would tell authorities that when her husband left, she had actually been sleeping on the sofa while Ezra slept nearby on the recliner. Though she would later change this story and say that she had been awake when her husband left, and she had only fallen asleep a little while later. When she did, Ezra was still also sleeping at that point. According to Nay, he had also put a heavy door stopper in front of the outside door before he had gone to Walmart, because Ezra knew how to open it and he didn't want him getting out by chance. But Tracy would tell authorities that Ezra couldn't open doors, only the cats could. She also claimed that the doorstop had not been in place, like Nay said. So at some point, while Nay was out at Walmart, Tracy had awoken to find that Ezra was gone. Then she noticed that the garage entryway door was also open. So she got into her car and drove to the end of the driveway looking for her grandson. It was only when Tracy turned around and began heading back towards the house that she noticed Ezra face down in the pond. A neighbor had then been the one to call 911 after they heard the grandmother screaming and saw her performing CPR on Ezra. So why did Tracy and Nay's accounts of the doorstop being there differ? Was Tracy trying to shift the blame onto her husband for Ezra getting outside? She also did originally say that when he had left to go to the store, she had been sleeping. So, possibly. Tracy had also taken some prescription medication before Ezra had been left in her care. Medication that lists sedation as a major side effect. Even with these inconsistencies surrounding Ezra's death, his mother Kayla would be told by authorities at this point that unless she believed her mother had physically held her son underwater and intentionally killed him, there was nothing else they could do about his death. In January of 2025, Tracy Nix would go to trial for her charges in relation to Uriel's death. When she did, the defense tried to say that she was not responsible for the baby dying, but rather it was Tracy's prescription medication that was to blame. And Uriel's death was just an isolated incident, which we know is clearly not true because she was also supposed to be responsible for Ezra when he died under her care. His death, however, was not allowed to be brought up at the trial, which doesn't seem fair, especially since Tracy's lawyer was able to make the statement that Uriel's death was an isolated incident. So at the time of Uriel's death, Tracy had been taking prescription Cymbalta and Ambien. And her attorney claimed that it could have caused the grandmother to be forgetful enough to leave her granddaughter in the car. Tracy was also taking lorazepam for her sleep apnea, and that can cause serious sedative effects, as well as problems with attention and concentration. But if Tracy was so heavily medicated that she could have just easily forgotten her granddaughter in the car, then should she have even been driving directly before that? And if her medication was such an issue, then should she have even been trusted to watch children in the first place? According to Tracy's husband, Nay, he didn't realize that anything was off with her at the time. But now, looking back, he can see that there were some changes in his wife. At the end of the trial, 67-year-old Tracy Nix would be found guilty on her charge of leaving a child unattended in a vehicle longer than 15 minutes, causing great bodily harm. However, the jury found her not guilty of aggravated manslaughter of a child. Prior to Tracy receiving her sentence, Uriel and Ezra's mother, Kayla, would speak, and she would say to Tracy, "I still love you. I hate this. I hate that I have to choose, but you know I had to. But it doesn't change my heart." The mother also said that she would want Ezra and Uriel to know that she and their father, Drew, loved them and that they were so sorry, because they were the most beautiful children and they were taken by someone that they believed was worthy of their trust. The grandmother spoke as well. Here's what she said.
I think that you have the impression that I have not grieved and that I have not cared about your children. Drew, I particularly picked that up from you, and that could not be farther from the truth. After she was gone, I stayed in bed for what felt like weeks. I didn't eat. I didn't care if I ate. I didn't take care of my physical being. I didn't want to go outside. I would tell Nay over and over, I know that you want to fix something for dinner, but I just don't care. I just don't care. And I was like that a long time until finally I decided I had to do something about it, and the courts were good enough to allow me to go to Blackberry. Blackberry was an alcohol, drug, and trauma center, and I was there for trauma, and I was there 7 weeks. So I spent 2 weeks at Peace River and 7 weeks at Blackberry. It did help because I saw a psychiatrist every day, a psychologist or a therapist. I saw one of the two of them every day. My fear in just going straight into some sort of counseling was that if I ever opened that box and then didn't see somebody for another week, I would never have been able to handle that. But after 7 weeks of intensive attention and therapy, when I got home, I began therapy every Friday until actually the Friday before trial. So for almost 2 years, trying to wrap my head around it, trying to. And I want to just go on and make another comment that Drew said, that you hadn't even received an apology from me. You had not received an apology because I wasn't allowed to talk to you. I wasn't allowed to be close to you. But let me tell you something. I would give anything, including my life, if Uriel or Ezra or both of them could be here, and I mean that. I would give my life if they could be here. But that is not how God wanted that to be. And I can't explain it beyond that. But that's not how God wanted it to be. So I've got to figure out how to live. Because I would never hurt your babies on purpose. You've got to know that. You've got to know that. I just would never hurt them on purpose. I loved your babies. With all of my heart, I love your babies. So if I have to apologize, if I have the opportunity To say I'm sorry is so menial and insignificant. But maybe if I told you that I would literally lay my life down for them, maybe that would make the I'm sorry more meaningful. I would do that if it would bring them back. You've got to know that. I don't know what else to say. I could probably babble on, but the important thing is that you know that I wouldn't hurt your babies. I just wouldn't.
Now, even though a psychiatrist who had spoken during the trial said that Tracy was one of the most genuine people he had ever interviewed and was honest and remorseful, that's not exactly what the judge would say about the grandmother prior to her being sentenced. He believed that Tracy was just showing sorrow rather than remorse. He said, "I see her more concerned with her community image than the death of a child. I do not believe she's shown remorse. I believe she's showing sorrow. Sorrow is not the same as remorse." The judge then handed her the maximum possible sentence, which was 5 years in prison.
I was relieved to hear that there was going to be accountability and ownership and a conclusion to this part of this story. One of the things that we have struggled with through this whole case has been the exclusion of my other story, which is my son that drowned in her care. And so for us, this is a win for Uri. But I have a son named Ezra, and he has not been spoken of. And he died in her care. And I don't have any accountability or any answers for that. And I continue to look for those answers to what happened in that case and why that case was not worthy of prosecution at that time. So we're going to be going back in with the state and having a few more conversations to see. But in this moment, we are relieved. The daughter and me had a very hard time with her being taken, and I ended up stepping aside for that moment. And it isn't something that I would ever call a win for me. It is a win for justice for my daughter. And we are grateful to the jurors that spent their time, to all the experts, to all the police and EMTs and every person that played a hand in this trial. We are truly grateful for your consideration and your time and the energy you guys have spent, as well as you guys from the media. I'm truly grateful for giving my story a voice and giving our kids a chance for the world to see that they were incredibly wanted and loved and valued to us. And we are happy ultimately with what the state provided for us in terms of this case with Ezra, or with Uri. And I continue to look for a way to address my son Ezra's issue, because it's something I feel worthy of attention.
For it being not guilty, it does sting. I'm thankful though that we did get something. I didn't want to walk out of there and see her walk away like she's been for the past 2 years and just being out and about. I was glad to see that the jury did see our side of it, even though they didn't push for the maximum sentence. It was still, like I said, a form of justice.
Well, and as her daughter, I've struggled the whole time with understanding why there couldn't just be that ownership and what did happen. Like, why did we do this? The destruction that has come from this process is pretty unfathomable as well. You know, my kids are dead, but I've lost a lot more than that.
My son's lost a brother. My son's lost a sister. Absolutely. You know what I mean? We look at it from that perspective, and it's, we
advocate for our children.
Yeah.
Tracy's attorney would say that while he considered the aggravated manslaughter charge acquittal a win, he plans on appealing her guilty verdict on the other charge. He stated that he plans on bringing up expert testimony that was not allowed to be used during Tracy's trial. This testimony says that she had been taking a double dose of Ambien on the day that she had been watching Uriel. Though I don't understand how that's going to help her case, because if she was taking double the dose of a prescribed medication, then isn't that her fault? And shouldn't she still be just as responsible, if not more, for her granddaughter's death? Ezra Xiong's funeral was held on Tuesday, December 28, 2021, at First Baptist Church in Wauchula, Florida. His little sister's funeral was held less than a year later on November 8th, 2022, also at First Baptist Church. Well, thank you for listening to Ezra and Uriel's stories today. While it seems to me like Tracy regrets what happened to her grandchildren, I just don't understand why it took 2 deaths for her to realize how badly she had messed up. After Ezra's death, Tracy should have been way more on guard, especially when caring for her brand new granddaughter. 1 death can be an accident, but 2 less than a year apart? It just doesn't make sense. What do you think? So, if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And turn on your notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least 3 times every single week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out on patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims are never forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a story you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email to awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.